The obvious place to start here would be Gabe Vincent being out for Game 5. Now, at last check, his status for Game 6 is a relative unknown, but I would argue that the Heat absolutely need him to be back on the floor and to be productive. And here's why. The Heat have used the pick and roll game about as frequently as any playoff team in basketball. Gabe Vincent has helped that. He has been phenomenal when it comes to passing to cutters, getting the ball down low for someone who is open in the post. That matters a great deal. Instead, you're having Kyle Lowry, who really isn't that type of player, and the offense with him has been very different. Without Gabe Vincent, the Heat have to call different plays. And to me, those plays are just so substantially different that they're having to adjust on the fly against a Celtics team that is, say, a little bit hungrier, a little bit more ready to play, J-Rod. And even though it is just one player who we haven't talked about very much throughout the course of these playoffs, to me, what he's done as an assist guy has been really impactful. And you can also make the argument, too, that Miami is just running out of warm bodies at the guard position, and they're running out of those who can manufacture an offense. And at some point, that will come back to haunt you.
For as well as Miami started in this series, Boston has also never really panicked. Remember, they've won 4 of the last 5 playoff games they've played in Miami. So coming back here is not a big thing for them. And I think for the Heat, I think they kind of, overplayed themselves. Eric Spoelstra once again shows why he's a Hall of Fame coach. He's able to make those adjustments, but it goes to show you that it can't be done just solely with Jimmy Butler. And now those injuries are starting to creep up. I mean, when Duncan Robinson is your leading scorer at 18 points, you're in trouble. And I think Aaron nailed it, the fact that Gabe Vincent didn't play. We think he's going to play in Game 6, but how healthy is he going to be with that ankle? Kevin Love's been a non-factor for them. Highsmith actually came off the bench, and all of a sudden, we're going to probably see him get some minutes. I think Miami, their Game 7 is Saturday night. If they lose that, I don't think they're coming back from it, and Boston is making history. Although, again, the Heat are an 8th seed. I think people forget that. I know it's 3-0, exactly. But Boston is a team that played in the NBA Finals. You know what I mean? This is a great team. It's expected to go back there. And by the way, so Joe Mazzulla, he can coach again. It's all good. He's not getting fired because literally he was 1 foot out the door, and now all of a sudden he can coach again. He's going to have to be playoff Jimmy, I think, to win the game. So I'm thinking over 211.5 and over 28.5 for Jimmy.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think the concern is that this number opened at 213.5 and has already worked its way down to 211 and even 210.5 at some books. I don't know. I think if you're approaching the total, if you like the over, you might want to jump in early, because I do think as the game goes on, you're going to start to see it be a little bit more physical. I do think both teams, especially what we saw in the first quarter in Game 5, you saw Boston really push pace. And in Miami, that was part of the issue with their turnovers. They got some buckets, but they were willing to go at Boston's pace. And I think the question then becomes, if you're buying in Miami in Game 6, are they going to push the pace as well? Are they going to get the open looks that they need? Is Martin going to be able to shoot the ball that he has been all throughout the course of this series? And he's been remarkable, especially from 3, as has Derek White. When do you see him getting into the rotation? Is it going to be earlier if Boston starts to struggle? So I kind of look at the total, especially later in these series, is that if you like the over, you might want to go ahead and jump on it from the get-go. But if you like the under, kind of let the handful of those first 5, 6, 7 minutes before you start to see the rotations come in. And more than likely, that's when you're going to start to see better defense, especially as the game goes on. So I like your call. I think you go over early and then let that number rise and try and get the under. Maybe you can even middle it a little bit as well. I have to shout out my good friend Adam Rosenberg, who I believe is also a friend of the show, who kind of put this on my radar in the first place. I think the Rams are live to win this division in the NFC West at plus 700. Okay? 49ers. Let's talk about this for a second. Let's have an objective look at this as quickly as we can.
Sure.
So obviously, first year without D'Amico Ryans. Could be Sam Darnold starting the season until Brock Purdy is healthy. And remember, the sample size for Purdy is impressive, but it's also very limited. Then there's Seattle. Obviously another great draft, but we're also anticipating that Gino's going to look like the 2022 version of himself. He's a high regression candidate. They drafted another high running back high after Ken Walker last year. Just something feels a little bit off to me with Seattle. And then the Cardinals are in a full-on rebuild. The Rams are going to get Stafford back. When he is healthy, he's the best quarterback in this division. Cooper Kupp is going to be back healthy. The defense still has key playmakers. You can make the argument that they're moving on from Jalen Ramsey at a key time as he starts to go into the twilight of his career. They shouldn't be the favorite, but plus 700, given all the other issues with the 49ers and possibly even the Seahawks as well, there's parity in the NFL every year, folks. And then if you have those two players and Stafford and Kupp look like you saw them from the last couple of years, they could certainly make some noise, and they have a very good coach in McVay. Not a great covering coach, but a good coach nonetheless. I think 700 is way too high.
Believe it or not, I'm actually going to start with the Commanders. And Taylor Heineke's not there anymore, but you know who is? Jacoby Brissett. His numbers were outstanding last year with the Browns. His ability to run was such a difference maker, especially in that system. He was serviceable, and now he's getting Eric Bieniemy as his offensive coordinator. I think the ceiling is probably highest for Brissett if and when he plays significant snaps for the Commanders. Number 2, I have Gardner Minshew for the Colts. Kept the Eagles afloat when Hurts was out last year. They weren't necessarily victories, but he did compete against a good Cowboys team, had great outings with the Jags before that. His numbers are pretty solid. Then at number 3, I have Marcus Mariota for the Eagles. Part of this is making sure you can keep track of who's gone where, because a lot of starters and backups from last year have swapped teams. But Marcus Mariota is third for me for the Eagles. Have to be able to run from spread formations in this Eagles offense for the most part. Mariota should be able to do that. And then at number 4 is the 49ers situation with Sam Darnold, with Trey Lance. I know it's not enough of a sample size to say that Lance is a bust. We need to see more games to conclude that. But I think Darnold showed me something in those final few games last year with Carolina to where I feel like he'll be a good quasi-veteran to come in and say, help out Lance, help out Purdy. I like that situation there. And then finally, Taylor Heineke now with the Falcons. Not some great numbers with QBR, pass rating, things like that, but he's been in a lot of high leverage situations. His touchdown rate every season with Washington was 4% or greater. Taylor Heineke is my number 5.